Some companies, they just build a product. A few manage to build a legacy, but a very, very small number are defined by their incredible ability to survive the impossible. This is the story of BMW, a company built on a series of do-or-die pivots that took it from the absolute brink of extinction to a global powerhouse. So how did they pull it off? Let's dive in.
Okay, so we're not going to start at the beginning. No, we're jumping right into the most intense, nail-biting moment in the company's entire history. A moment when the BMW we know today was this close to just disappearing. I mean, think about that. Can a company literally die in just 10 hours? Sounds crazy, right? But for BMW back in 1959, this wasn't just a question. It was a terrifyingly real possibility. The fate of the entire company, everything, came down to one single chaotic meeting.
Look, the situation was absolutely dire. BMW was technically insolvent. Its fancy luxury cars weren't selling, its little microcars weren't making enough money, and their massive rival Daimler-Benz was circling, ready to swallow them whole and basically turn them into a parts factory for Mercedes.
Can you imagine, for 10 grueling hours, you've got shareholders, workers, and executives all battling it out for the company's future? The vote to sell was literally minutes away from passing. The company was hanging on by a thread. And to really get how they managed to survive this, we've got to rewind the clock way back.
See, this knack for survival, it wasn't something cooked up in a fancy boardroom. Nope. It was forged in the fire, in the absolute chaos of Germany right after World War I, when BMW's entire reason for existence was basically outlawed overnight.
So get this, BMW kicks off in 1916, building what were arguably the best aircraft engines in World War I. They even set a world altitude record. But then, bam, the Treaty of Versailles says, nope, you can't build those anymore. So what do? Do they fold? No. They pivot, creating a legendary motorcycle, the R32. Fast forward to after World War II, their factories are just rubble. And what do they pivot to then? Pots and pans. Seriously, just to keep the lights on. That's what I mean when I say resilience is baked right into their DNA.
Okay, and you gotta love this one. Let's talk about that famous logo. For decades, we've all been told it's a spinning propeller, right? A cool nod to their aviation roots. Well, guess what? That's actually a total myth. One that came out of an ad campaign way back in 1929. The real story is way simpler, but still cool. It's just the blue and white of the Bavarian state flag.
All right, so let's get back to that crazy 10-hour meeting in 1959. How on earth did they get out of that mess? Well, it all came down to one guy's gutsy, last-second decision, and one truly game-changing car. This industrialist, Herbert Quandt, he already owned a big chunk of the company. And honestly, he walked into that meeting ready to cash out and sell. But then something happened. He listened to these passionate pleas from workers and small-time investors, and he just had this complete change of heart. Right there, against all the advice from his bankers, he risked his entire personal fortune, cranked his stake up to 50%, and personally, single-handedly slammed the door on the Daimler-Benz deal.
And man, the effect of that one decision was like night and day. Before '62, BMW was just a mess. They were selling these super expensive luxury cars no one could afford, and these tiny, cheap bubble cars with zero prestige. They had no identity. But after Quandt's move, everything, and I mean everything, got focused on creating a whole new category of car, the premium sports sedan. And this was the car that made it all happen. The Neue Klasse, which just means new class, wasn't just a new model. It was a whole new philosophy on four wheels. It was sporty, it was practical, and it was premium. This car saved the company and created the very identity that would eventually become the ultimate driving machine.
But you know how it goes. Success is never just a straight line up. In the 90s, BMW was riding high, maybe a little too high, and they made what has to be one of the most expensive mistakes in car history. It was a painful lesson, for sure, but an incredibly valuable one. So in 1994, BMW bought the British Rover Group for £800 million. The thinking was, hey, this will help us gain scale, enter new markets. On paper, it looked like a great idea.
Yeah, it wasn't. Over 6 years, that deal turned into a financial black hole. You had clashing cultures, huge quality issues, strategic confusion. It led to staggering losses of around $4 billion.
So in the end, they just had to rip the Band-Aid off. In 2000, they sold the main part of Rover to a British group for the grand total of £10. 10! It was an absolute unmitigated disaster.
But here's the crazy part.
Out of the ashes of that total failure, a couple of really important things happened. First, BMW learned a tough lesson about brand discipline. They had to stick to what made them special. And second, almost as an afterthought, they held on to the rights for one tiny, kinda weird British brand, Mini. And that turned out to be pure genius.
So you see the pattern, right? From planes to pans, from bankruptcy to the new class, from the Rover disaster to the wild success of Mini, all of it was like training. It was all preparing the company for its biggest reinvention yet, the massive pivot to an all-electric future.
And just like back in 1959, they are betting the farm. Again, they're pouring more money into this one project than they have into anything ever in their entire history. A brand new, dedicated electric vehicle platform designed from a completely clean sheet of paper.
And here's the kicker. In this really powerful nod to their own history, what are they calling this revolutionary new platform? The Neue Klasse. I mean, come on. They're basically screaming from the rooftops that this isn't just a new model. This is a total reinvention of BMW, all over again.
And look, this is way more than just a clever name. This new platform is a massive leap in technology. We're talking a 30% boost in range, charging that's 30% faster, and a 25% jump in overall efficiency compared to what they have now. That is the engineering muscle you need to back up a bet this big.
And their ambition here is just huge. So right now, fully electric cars are about 17% of their sales. Their goal? To get that number to 50%, half of everything they sell by 2030. That is a gigantic, rapid-fire transformation of their entire business.
So the parallel here, it's just impossible to miss. In 1962, a bold engineering bet and a revolutionary product called the New Class pulled the company back from the brink and defined it for more than half a century.
So now, as this whole new electric era kicks off, BMW is basically running the same play. They're betting that a new class, built on absolutely brilliant engineering, is going to reinvent the company and lock down its future for the next generation.
So I'll leave you with this to think about. As every single car maker races toward an electric future, what's going to be BMW's ultimate trump card? Is it that sheer driving pleasure, that core engineering DNA? Or is it that tough, gritty resilience they learned from nearly dying so many times? Or maybe, just maybe, it's the stable, long-term vision they get from the Quandt family still being in charge. The next decade is going to tell us the answer.